now joining the meeting.
Good evening, this is John.
Hi, John.
This is Todd.
Hi, Todd.
Hey.
Jennifer's here.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
This
Hi,
is
Jennifer.
David. I dialed in.
Was that Samantha?
This is David. I just dialed in.
Hi, David.
Hey.
Jennifer, it was Lisa too. Oh, okay.
Do you want to add me to the list?
This is Sam. I'm here.
Now here's my question. This is Pete. So I'm on
Hi, Pete.
Teams. Do I need to be on the conference call?
I just used the phone number that we got, Pete, and the code.
If you're on Teams, you don't need to call in, Pete. This is Tony
Thank
Brigado.
you. That way I get to look at Dave Compton and Steve Harden.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Hello.
Hey.
Are we still waiting for Brad and who else? Somebody else? Brad, I think.
Something's echoing. I'm having a hard time hearing people.
Brad's here.
Okay. Hi, Brad.
Hello.
I think all the council members are here, right? I think. Selena, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay.
Jocelyn,
Okay. Well. Yes, Jocelyn, I think was here. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get everything going here. Good evening. I want to call the May 18, 2020 City Council meeting to order. Before we get started, I want to confirm those present for the record. So I'm going to start with council members. Councilman David George.
I'm here.
Okay. Councilman Todd Zimmerman.
Here.
Councilman Brad DeReamer.
Present.
Councilman Sam DeLong.
present.
Councilman John Weingard.
Here.
Councilor Jocelyn Baer. Jocelyn Baer.
I'm here.
Okay. Councilor Pete Peterson.
Here.
Councilor Selena Stoller.
Here.
And I'm obviously here. Okay. Can all staff members please identify themselves for the record, please?
Megan Baumgartner.
Tony Brigado.
Jesse Bochelle.
Lisa Bradford. Megan Schaefer.
Eric Puffle.
Ashley Elrod.
Jason Taylor.
Rick Hall from Barnes and Thornburg.
Chris Greisel.
Elliot Holtgren.
Okay, anybody else? Looks like we have all the staff members present here. I want to thank you all for being here today. We're now going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So as we begin today's council meeting, the council continues to hold this meeting telephonically in accordance with the governor's executive orders concerning the COVID-19 public health crisis. With the exception of the consent agenda, we will take a roll call vote on all items being presented tonight. Additionally, the council has provided the public with opportunities to participate in this meeting by submitting comments through the city's website. Any comments received have been distributed to the council and will be included in the minutes for tonight's agenda. So I'm going to begin with an announcement. It is National Public Works Week this week. Today, we want to take a moment to recognize the quality of life the citizens of Fishers experience thanks in part to the hard work and dedication of our Department of Public Works. As part of National Public Works Week, May 17th through the 23rd, we join municipalities across the nation as we acknowledge the public works industry and specifically our own Public Works Department. And we want to thank them for all they do in our community. Thank you very much, Eric Peffel. Thank you for everything you do, you and your team.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have, what's that?
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, we're going to move on. We have one proclamation. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I will read a proclamation from the City of Fishers. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions, and whereas there is a strong research that animal companionship, humor, spirituality, religion, recreation, social connections, and work-life balance can help all Americans protect their health and well-being. And whereas mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation, with Indiana ranking 48th in the nation for access to mental health care. And whereas with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health and other chronic health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen shares the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. And whereas Fishers is dedicated to becoming a stigma-free community, therefore I, Scott Sadness, Mayor of the City of Fishers, do hereby proclaim May 2020 as Mental Health Month. As mayor, I also call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in the City of Fishers to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health. The steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental health conditions. Signed, the first day of May 2020, I, Scott Sadness, Mayor of the City of Fishers. We have no presentations today, so we are going to move on to the Finance Committee report. I'm going to turn it over to the Finance Committee Chair, John Weingart, for him to give the month report.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Councilor Coble. And just to give you some ideas, we did meet last May 13th for our Finance Committee and recommended for approval tonight that's on the agenda. On the consent agenda, item 6B, item 8, item 9, item 10, and item 11 The Finance Committee unanimously recommended for the council for consider and approve for this evening. Other items that we discussed in the Finance Committee meeting were the audited financial statements prepared by our outside audit firm, BKD. Those financials are scheduled to be completed June 30th, which, if you recall, that's tremendously earlier than in prior years. Just from the standpoint, we're on one accounting software right now. We're not having to audit two different accounting softwares. So we're looking forward to getting the information. I did meet with the audit partner from BKD via phone, and he said the audit was going very smoothly, and Lisa and her team were doing an outstanding job providing information for them. Secondly, certainly something that's all on our minds during this time is certainly, what is our budget going to look like? And Lisa commented during the meeting that we'll know it's really going to affect us. We're a lagging indicator. The income that we're going to have a shortfall or a decrease in is going to occur probably in 2021 and 2022. So the upcoming budget process, once we can understand what our share of the revenue that's going to be coming our way for budgetary purposes is going to have certainly an impact on how we put our budget together. So stay tuned on that. And certainly there's one thing on the agenda regarding the transfer of interfund funds to pay for some of our bond obligations that are part of that, push out of the income that we received, and we'll be considering that tonight as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Reingard. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda this evening consists of two items. Item A is a request to approve the regular meeting minutes from the council's April 24th, 2020 meeting. And item B is a resolution R051820, which is a request from the city controller transferring funds. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Pete. Motion to approve.
I will second.
Motion
This is John.
to approve. Okay. Motion to approve by Pete Peterson and second by John Weingart. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed, so the motion passes. Okay, thank you. We're moving on to the regular agenda, item 7. Item 7 is ordinance 051820A regarding an amendment to the noise ordinance, establishing a nickel plate district construction waiver. The intent of this ordinance is to give special consideration to certain construction projects within the nickel plate district due to various reasons. After further legal review, our city attorney, Chris Greisel, would like to review the noise ordinance with us tonight to seek and confirm the council's consideration moving forward. So at this time, Chris?
Yeah, thank you, President Coble. Good evening, Council. For the record, Chris Greisel, City Attorney. After reviewing various requests from certain projects in our nickel plate district, the city attempted to frame a policy conversation with the council tonight regarding their desire to create an additional exemption to the city's noise ordinance, which is Chapter 98 of the Fishers Code of Ordinances. This conversation centered around special consideration of construction activity outside the hours regulated by our city's noise ordinance. After further legal review and several council members pointing to an already existing exemption provided in Chapter 98, I'm now here tonight to have a further discussion on that particular exemption and to gain a general consensus from the council with respect to the application of that exemption. So Chapter 98 of the City Code prescribes rules and regulations regarding the production of noise within the City of Fishers. Section 98.02 provides the rules and regulations, and particular to this conversation, subsection E provides that construction equipment shall be limited to the hours between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. from May 15th to September 15th. Section 98.03 then provides a list of exemptions to the general rules and regulations that are found within Section 98.02. Specific to this conversation, subsection I provides that sounds that are emitted by construction work or road work approved by the city or other governmental entity is exempted from the city's noise regulations. Now, as this council is well aware, as an entity, the city generally exempts itself from its own rules and regulations. And as such, the city has strictly applied this exception found in section 98.03, subsection I, to city projects, both with respect to road infrastructure projects or city buildings. However, a fair reading of this exemption could be applied in a much broader fashion. That is, to exempt certain projects from the noise regulations upon city approval. With respect to a legislative intent, our city's noise ordinance was first adopted in 2000, and the adoption of that enabling ordinance was specifically limited to those devices producing noise that was plainly audible at a distance greater than 30 feet from the device. So when the city council or the town council at the time originally adopted this noise ordinance, it was solely focused on those items that produce noise greater than 30 feet from that device. In March of 2011, the city amended the noise ordinance and provided a much more robust list of exemptions, which are found today in section 98.03. The council minutes and the amendment do not reflect a particular legislative intent regarding section 98.03 subsection I, which is the exemption at issue. So tonight, I am simply seeking the council's direction as to how it believes section 98.03 subsection I should apply. If the council believes that construction work or road work may already be exempted from the noise regulations contained within section 98.02 of the Fishers Code, then the city will take that direction and move forward with establishing a process through its Board of Public Works and Safety, which would consider a special exemption to the noise ordinance for particular projects. And that exemption would look very similar to what was originally proposed to be presented as Exhibit A in tonight's ordinance. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Council President Coble, for any discussion the council may wish to have regarding this particular exemption, and I'll look forward to the council's direction on this matter.
Thank you, Chris Greisel. So for discussion purposes, I'm now going to just ask each council member whether they have any additional comments. We'll start with David George, Councilman David George.
Thank you. Chris, I just want to make sure I understand you've got two directions in a road, no pun intended, but two directions when you read the code. And if it is something that we say that is included in 98.03-I, that the process that you're talking about, that would be something like the Board of Public Works. So just confirm that, number one. Number two, if it is, it would be a project specific, not global, which is what this request would be. So that would be pulled. This would go through and it'd be a project specific. So if something were to happen, it'd be that particular process. It would be that particular project. And then number three, at the Board of Public Works, that's a public meeting so that any resident that's in an affected area could come and could not only listen, but also speak. So could you kind of go through those two or 3 points just to clarify for me?
Sure, Councilmember George. So what we were originally proposing tonight, you can think of it as both the front end of the process and the back end of the process for council consideration. So the front end of the process is to have the legislative authority to be able to go out and deem certain projects worthy of an exemption. And so with a broader application of subsection I, that would permit any city project to be exempted from the noise ordinance upon city approval. What we were saying now is that if that's the interpretation that the council is going to take as a broader application, then the city on the back end would take that direction and establish an exemption procedure through the Board of Public Works and Safety. Right now, we're only considering these special construction projects within the Nickel Plate District. And this noise exemption, if it were to have a broader exemption or a broader application, would not just apply to any project out there. The city would have a back-end process to consider projects like the ones we presented tonight through the Board of Public Works and Safety, which would contain an application process and a waiver process for the public.
Thank you.
Make sure.
Go ahead, David.
Sorry. Yeah, I just want to make sure I fully understand. So if this goes forward to that process, would that be this particular request would be before the Board of Public Works, or a process would be set up there so that this zone could be approved, and it wouldn't be project specific? It would be basically a certain zone.
So with respect to the original ordinance that was presented to you tonight, the intent was to set up a waiver process for certain construction projects within the Nickel Plate District. If the council believes that subsection I already allows for an exemption of any city project to take place, then the process would still remain intact through the city's Board of Public Works and Safety, only with respect to these construction projects in the Nickel Plate District right now. So if the council globally were to say that this exemption applies to the broader context of approved city construction work or road work, then on the back end, the Board of Public Works and Safety would set up a waiver process necessary to meet those demands. And right now, the only consideration that is upon the city is for these special construction projects within the Nickel Plate District.
Okay. Well, since I was around for both of those, I think that it does, there's always an exemption process, or at least an additional discussion, because you can't have a code that covers every single instance. So I think that was included in there, but if it were to move forward, I would still view it that I would wish it to be a project specific and not a global one. But either way, it would still be before the Board of Public Works, and it'd be a public meeting where the public could come and speak on that behalf.
That's correct. And to be clear, the board would not be taking direction from the council tonight to have global application to all city projects. The board would recognize that for any project that it would want to exempt out of the noise ordinance would have specific application to specific projects.
Okay. That answers it, Cecilia. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to Councilman Todd Zimmerman.
Thank you, President Coble. Chris, yeah, as we discussed this week, I was concerned with this ordinance just because I felt like it actually limited the opportunity for the mayor and his team to be able to have exemptions for projects maybe that will come online, you know, who knows, one day, 116th in Allisonville or 96th Street corridor or wherever it may be, and that we're not creating ordinance after ordinance to chase after small pockets of development, but that there's that opportunity that I believe is already prescribed in the exemption in I, that any construction work approved by the city, which you have to have a permit to have construction, so that permit basically puts you in as a approved by the city, and that would give authority there to mayor's office and whatever mechanism set up there to make exemptions, exceptions to specific things. And I would ask this, though, as long as the process is set up to make sure that the public and those that are impacted have a say in the conversation. And so it doesn't look like one pocket and, you know, certain, a development may be able to override the community. So, you know, I saw some of the public comments that came through, and I think that was the concern that was there. However, I would push back even on those comments, say the exemption's already there, and therefore we shouldn't have to write more legislation to do something that's already there.
Great. Okay. Can we move on to Councilman Brad Reamer?
I interpreted that the Board of Works already has control in the decision-making process. Thank you.
Councilor Sam DeLong?
Same as Brad, I interpreted that I already covered it.
Thank you. Councilor John Weingart?
I agree. The Board of Public Works already has this as part of their process as long as the public has the opportunity to speak. I'm not in favor of this ordinance that's being presented tonight. Where the Board of Public Works already has authority, we don't need to add more legislation on the books. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor Jocelyn Dare?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Yes, I do have a couple questions about this. My first one is about regardless of the process of how the conversation is happening and the developer gets to consider being an exception, I want to understand better the objective, and maybe that's part of the question of why we're wondering about letter I in the current list of exemptions. So my question is, what is the rule that will be applied here? And in my opinion, it should be to protect the residents. And already the ordinance has stated that the hours are available for construction are from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the summer months. So that seems extraordinary to me. Will, moving forward, regardless of the process, will the exceptions be considered only if daytime disruption is greater than nighttime disruption? Again, if you don't mind, if I can get a little bit more information of the intent of this, and if it is indeed to protect nearby residents, especially since we're talking about the Nickel Plate District, which is having so much construction currently and moving forward.
Sure. So, Councilmember Vare, I think clearly always with statutory construction, you don't want the exception to become part of the rule. So exceptions are always looked at on a limited basis. And with respect to the original ordinance that was going to be proposed tonight, Exhibit A to that ordinance produced a draft waiver of what this could look like, particularly within the Nickel Plate District, and what the board could adopt as part of its process. So as you correctly stated, the hours of construction are limited between 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. during those summer months. However, understanding that there's unique challenges of developing dense multi-story projects within a densely populated urbanized core, the city had started to hear from the developers about challenges to operating, in particular constructing garages within those general timeframes before things got really busy within the city. So within the application process, what the city attempted to do was to provide three general kind of characteristics for an application. The first one was substantial need, and the developer showing a substantial need for the waiver. So just because the city has the ability to approve the waiver or to approve the exemption for a certain project doesn't mean it's automatically going to get it. There has to be some special circumstance necessitating an application for a waiver. Second, the developer was going to have to provide the board with at least a detailed construction schedule, specifically identifying the dates and times when the developer planned to perform or cause to be performed certain construction activity outside of those regulated hours, the types of activity to be performed, the equipment to be utilized, and any accommodations made to reduce the impact of this special activity on nearby residents. And finally, and probably most importantly to your point, the developer has to demonstrate that it is communicated with and engaged nearby residents who may be affected by this special construction activity in order to inform them, understand their concerns, and consider any accommodations they may request. So the developer was going to have to, or will have to, come forward and demonstrate its plan to the city's Board of Public Works and Safety necessary to satisfy those three particular topics. And so I think with respect to consideration of the resident concerns that may be had in these nearby areas, the city was certainly mindful by that and is hoping that it leads the discussion for this application process to where the developer and the residents can work together, and then the city, through its process, can understand what those conversations are like and understand whether reasonable accommodations were made.
So we have already had a developer come forward and already unfortunately generate concerns from nearby residents, and I believe has already kind of gone through this 3-step process. And my concern, I know I personally received a reach out from residents nearby who complained about construction noise and lights, of course, starting at like 4 in the morning. And when those residents approached the city, the developer was given the opportunity to have an extension on the ordinance and the normal construction hours. So my concern here is rules are in place in this particular situation, and I'm referring to the parking garage off of 116th Street, developed by Browning. The concern about that is that the developer had agreed to abide by the city ordinance, and now exceptions are being made, and they've stepped forward and communicated to residents as they're supposed to via this new process. Unfortunately, though, what they're proposing is a 45-day over the next 5 months of overnight work and early morning work, which is very disruptive for those residents. So for me, I would like to be sure that there's a pathway in place that the residents can have their voice heard and the developer adhere to the ordinance that's in place right now. Again, I'm focused on making sure that if there's exceptions made, that it's done because the disruption will be not as great to the nearby residents off hours. So the process in place, I just want to be sure has some collaboration involved and giving the residents the opportunity to speak out and have some voice here and not just go through and have the all these exceptions made, especially in the Nickel Plate District when we're having so much extensive construction all at once.
Chris, this is Mayor Sadness. Chris, I'll jump in on this.
Sure.
This is Mayor Sadness. To Councilwoman Vera's concerns, I think we have an adequate process moving forward that allows for public comment. The very fact that we're having this conversation really exemplifies two things. One, we have enforced the ordinance and told Browning that they can't continue to start before hours, and we're going to figure out a new model moving forward. The second part of that is really just comes down to all the different extenuating factors that we're going to have to consider as the Board of Public Works, and ultimately we want to make sure that we're looking out for not only the individual homeowner, but the aggregate of all the residents that live in that area, whether that's traffic congestion, whether that's safety, whether that's noise, inconvenience. What have the developers considered for these individuals? What have they offered to try to mitigate the impact? All of those things are going to come into a calculation and a judgment that myself and the two other people on that board are going to have to consider. And then ultimately, whether we make the right decision or not, I guess, would be subjective and be in the eye of the beholder. But I can assure you that our entire intent here is to try to create an environment where we can bring the business owners, the developers, the residents, the city all together and try to collectively problem solve for the betterment of everyone involved. So that's our goal, and that's what we're busy trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to move on to Councilor Pete Peterson.
Yeah, thanks, Cecilia. A couple things, and thank you all for the clarifications. I think, Chris, you were right in terms of bringing this back to the council for really the intent or the way we looked at the intent of the legislation. Instead of crafting this new ordinance to put on a specific ordinance. I, like Todd, don't want to continue to create ordinances over and over again by different areas for different things that may occur or not occur within the city. I do know, because I was part of the redo of the noise ordinance a number of years ago, that these were being put in place for the residents, not in deference to the residents. They were for the protection of the residents. So again, that's the reason why we're doing things legislatively, which is what we have to do. The council currently is not here to make a decision on whether a developer or any developer is going to get this waived or not waived. That's going to reside with the Board of Public Works, which is a statutory committee with published reports that are put out publicly, that are in the newspaper for those people to go and argue their case, whether it should or shouldn't happen on behalf of the residents or against the residents or whatever way you want to look at it. So again, staying in our lane as a council, we are here to go ahead and legislate. So I don't want to change the current noise ordinance as it sits. I believe the exemption exists. I think the process exists by taking it back to the mayor and the Board of Public Works. I think it's a very easy thing for us to opine on. So I am going to throw my support in leaving it and pushing that back to the decision-making process that I believe is statutory with the Board of Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. We'll move on to Councilor Selena Stoller.
I don't want to appear repetitive, but I do want to back up what Pete said, and I thought that he stated it very eloquently. So I do not want to create additional legislation at this point. I don't think it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Stoller. I echo the same sentiments of Councilor Pete Peterson. So with that, I am going to ask, do I have a motion to confirm the council's intent of section 98.03 subsection I of the Fishers Code of Ordinances that provides sounds emitted by construction work or road work approved by the city or other governmental entity means that any construction work or road work may be exempted from the noise regulations contained within section 98.02 of the Fishers Code of Ordinances. If the I'm sorry?
Go ahead, sorry.
If the city, through the city's Board of Public Works and Safety, approves such exemption upon whatever mechanism it chooses to establish thereafter.
This is Pete. I'm going to make a motion to approve, I guess, what Council President Coble just read.
Okay. There's a motion by Pete Peterson. Is there a second?
Second by Selena Stoller.
And there's a second by Selena Stoller. Okay. I will now ask the clerk to take a roll call vote on the motion.
Wait, can I ask, this is Todd, can I ask a question?
Sure, Councilor.
I just want to make sure that we're not voting to approve number 7, we're voting to.
That's correct. You're voting on the motion that Council President Coble just put before you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm sorry. Okay.
Cecilia Coble.
Aye.
Selena
Stoller. Aye.
David George.
Aye.
Pete Peterson.
Yes.
John Weingart.
Aye.
Brad Dreamer.
Aye.
Todd Zimmerman.
Aye.
Samantha DeLong. Aye. Jocelyn Vare.
I'm very sorry. I'm not sure if I understand what the motion is. Could it just be stated one more time? I'm sorry, I'm not clear.
Absolutely. So the motion is that it's the council's intent that section 98.03 subsection I of the Fishers Code of Ordinances that provides sounds emitted by construction work or road work approved by the city or other governmental entity means that any construction work or road work may be exempted from the noise regulations contained within section 98.02 of the Fisher's Code of Ordinances, if the city, through the city's Board of Public Works and Safety, approves such exemption upon whatever mechanism it chooses to establish thereafter. So what it basically is stating what Council Pete Peterson and Brad DeReamer have said all along, that we have this exemption, and now the Board of Public Works and Safety will provide the mechanism in which to establish this waiver process.
I understand the role of the Board of Public Works. The motion therefore strikes Exhibit A. Is that correct?
The motion is to confirm your intent. Exhibit A, from the Board of Public Works and Safety's perspective, Councilmember Vare, could very well still be intact if the board chooses to adopt Exhibit A as its process, which is more than likely the case.
So the motion is to keep the ordinance as is, correct?
That's correct, and I've asked that the council just affirms the intent of that specific subsection so that we as the city can have direction to move forward.
And the direction that has been captured from the council is what?
I believe it's what Council President Coble has stated in her motion, which is that this particular exemption allows for the city to exempt approved construction work or road work through its Board of Public Works and Safety upon the mechanism that it establishes.
Okay, thank you.
Jocelyn, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, all members voted aye. I will electronically sign the documents on your behalf.
Thank you, council, for your direction on this. We'll get to work on the back end process and keep you posted. So thank you for that direction.
Chris,
Thank
this
you.
is Jennifer. Could you please send me the exact wording as how you would like me to type this up in the minutes?
I will.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move on to item 8 and item 11 on the agenda. They go together. Item 8 is Resolution R051820A. It's a request to approve a resolution declaring an official intent to reimburse expenditures and approving matters related thereto. I'm going to turn it over to the City Controller, Lisa Bradford, for her presentation on this resolution.
Thank you. So as you mentioned, I'm going to talk about items 8 and 11 as they are related. So the item before you on number 8 is a reimbursement resolution allowing us to reimburse the city for costs already incurred related to capital construction costs. If the council recalls, in the winter, we did a transfer of cash reserves from the general fund to the rainy day to account for some capital needs, one-time recurring capital needs. Since that time, obviously, we've incurred the pandemic and we have focused our reserves elsewhere with the startup of the health department. So what this does is allows us to reimburse the general fund for costs incurred, and then item 11 will allow a general obligation bond of a small amount, about 2.5 million, that will be used to do these capital construction costs. As we talked about before, these will essentially be paid with the savings from various bond refundings to put this in a tax neutral position, and it should not result in a tax rate increase for the citizens, and will allow us to help keep our general fund in a good position as our reserve policy stipulates. Are there any questions?
Do I have a motion to approve R051820A?
This is Pete, so moved.
I'll second. This
So
is John.
there's a motion by Pete Peterson and a second by, John Weingart. For discussion, is there, any questions by the city council members? I'm gonna go ahead and start with, Councilman David George.
I don't have any further questions on this item.
Okay. Councilman Todd Zimmerman,
Nothing.
Councilman Brad DeReamer,
No comments, thank you.
Councilor Sam DeLong,
No questions.
Councilor John Weingart,
No questions.
Councilor Jocelyn Dare,
I do have a question. Can you explain the one-time capital need? Is that the fire station? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so if you think about capital repairs and capital expenditures, there's what you call kind of routine maintenance and repair, where you're talking about we're going to replace roofs, we're going to paint, we're going to repair carpet, do that type of stuff, which is common kind of upgoing year to year. And then this is like some large, what I would term one-time, really huge or really large capital expenditures that are of a greater extent, such as the need for a new building due to other various issues or expansion of the force and things like that. So what it is not meant to be a reoccurring expenditure or something that wouldn't pop up from year to year or every, I would say, 3 to 5 years. Does that help you?
A little bit. So just, I'm sorry, just to walk through just for one more moment. This is about fire station number 91, right? Right by City Hall. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the fire station that has been rebuilt. And a bond or a loan was taken out for it in 2018 to create it. And then now is this like an over budget situation that came out of cash reserve for the fire station?
At the time, sorry.
Yeah, but, Lisa, let me chime in here. This is Mayor Fadness. Okay. So this is in combination for Fire Station 91 and 93. When we initially sized those bonds, we had cost estimates for those two stations. The construction costs over the last 2 to 3 years going up significantly. We did have cost overruns in Station 91 and 93. We had anticipated using cash reserves, cash surplus, I should say, to pay the remainder of those. But given the favorable climate to refinance debt, we have the opportunity to basically gain enough in savings of refinancing debt to be able to pay for these costs through the issuance of these $2.5 million worth of bonds. And in doing so, we think it's a smart strategy as we build into the 2021-2022 timeframe that if we can maintain tax neutral status for our residents while at the same time being able to hold on to our cash depending upon what, revenue declines we see in 2021 and 2022. Both myself, the controller, as well as the finance committee found that would be an advisable action to take.
Sure, that makes sense. So the $2.5 million was supposed to originally come out of cash reserves, and now we're changing that approach. And so the dollars will reimburse the cash reserves. And
correct.
This is how 8 and 11 fit together. Items 8 and 11 fit together because now the $2.5 million overrun on the fire station will be part of the new bond that we approved last month. Do I have this right?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to be sure. And yep. I totally agree with the wisdom of the adjustment. I think I'm just more curious about the necessity of it, but I understand what's happening, and certainly at this time to keep cash reserves reserved makes sense. So thank you again for walking me through that.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilor Bear. We're moving to Pete Peterson.
No comments or questions.
Okay, Councilor Selena Stoller,
No comments or questions.
and I have no comments or questions. So I'm now going to call a vote on Resolution R051820A, and I'll ask the clerk to take a roll call vote.
Sophia Coble,
Aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
David George,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
John Weingart,
Aye.
Brad Raymer,
Aye.
Todd Zimmerman,
Aye.
Samantha DeLong,
Aye.
Jocelyn Vare.
Aye.
All members voted aye, and I will sign the documents accordingly electronically.
Thank you. Motion passes. We're going to then skip to 11 since item A and 11 are related. So item 11 is ordinance 051820. It's an ordinance amending ordinance number 032320A, authorizing general obligation bonds of the city of Fishers. Just a few moments ago, the council approved resolution R051820A, whereby the council declared its official intent to reimburse certain project expenditures with general obligation bond proceeds. And now the council will consider the corresponding amendment to the bond ordinance. And so I'm going to turn it over to the city controller, Lisa Bradford, for her presentation.
Thank you. So the item before you is up for first reading and also requires a public hearing. And as you indicated, it is an ordinance authorizing and amending the ordinance from March, amending the general obligation bonds to include a fire station 91 and 93 costs.
Okay. I know that there's a public hearing for this ordinance, and I'm going to open it up for the public hearing. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, the members of the public have been provided the opportunity to submit comments regarding any agenda item on the city's website, and any comments received prior to the meeting regarding ordinance 051820 have been distributed to the council, and those comments will be placed on the record as if the members attended the public hearing. Additionally, we have made City Hall available for public comments in accordance with the CDC guidelines. And so, Chris Greisel, are there any members of the public at City Hall wishing to speak about this topic?
No, there are not, Council President Coble.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Do I have a motion on ordinance 051820?
This is Pete. Motion to approve.
Pete, this
Okay,
is the first reading of the ordinance.
It's first
Okay,
reading.
so
I'll take
motion to have
motion at
first
first
reading.
reading.
Motion to have first reading.
Okay. So I have a motion by Pete Peterson to have a first reading on ordinance 051820. For discussion purposes, I'll now ask each council member whether they have any additional comments for staff before bringing the ordinance back to another council meeting. David George.
Nothing further.
Councilor Todd Zimmerman.
Nothing further.
Councilor Brad DeReamer.
No comments or questions.
Councilor Sam DeLong.
No comments or questions.
Councilor John Weingart.
No comments or
Counselor John?
questions.
Okay. Councilor Jocelyn Vare.
No comments or questions.
Councilor Pete Peterson.
Nothing further.
Councilor Selena Stoller.
No comments or questions.
And I don't have any comments or questions. Thank you. Ordinance 051820A has been given the first reading. We're going to move on back over to item number 9. Number 9 is a request to approve a resolution to appropriate additional bridge impact fee funds. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Bradford, our city controller, for her presentation.
Thank you. So the Bridge Impact Fee Fund is a home rule fund, which essentially means it is one of the funds that is submitted to the Division of Local Government Finance, but is essentially not a tax-related fund. And that means that we just need to send our information to the DLGF as an FYI. But the item before you for additional bridge impact fee funds is related to the construction on 96th Street between Lantern and Cumberland Road. The city is responsible for all bridges that are under 20 feet. So there are not a lot of those in Fishers, and there are not a lot of opportunities to use bridge impact fees to pay for certain construction costs. So when the opportunity arises, we do like to use bridge impact fees, and we've had that opportunity with the construction on 96th Street. And so what this does, due to some cost overruns and things that happened with NDOT, there was a cost overrun on the project right there related to the bridge. And so all this does is ask for $125,000 out of the cash reserve of the bridge impact fee fund. Are there any questions from the council on this?
Council President Coble, this does require a public hearing as well.
We'll get can we do the questions first, Chris, and then go to the public hearing?
Sure.
Okay. Council member David George, do you have any comments or questions?
Nothing further.
Okay. Councilor Todd Zimmerman,
No comments or questions.
Councilor Brad DeReamer,
No comments or questions.
Councilor Sam DeLong,
No comments or questions.
Councilor John Weingart,
No comments or questions.
Councilor Jocelyn Dare,
Nothing for me.
Councilor P. Peterson,
Nothing further.
Councilor Selena Stoller,
Nothing further.
and I don't have any questions. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. As I stated before the meeting, the members of the public have been given the opportunity to submit comments regarding any agenda items on the city's website. Any comments received prior to the meeting regarding Resolution R051820B have been distributed to the council, and those comments will be placed on the record as if the members attended the public hearing. Additionally, we have made City Hall available for public comments in accordance with the CDC guidelines. Chris, are there any members of the public there at City Hall wishing to speak about this resolution?
No, there is not.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R051820B?
This is Pete. Motion to approve.
Motion by
John, I'll
Pete
second.
Peterson, and a second by John Weingart. I will now call for a vote on Resolution R051820B.
Cecilia
And ask
Coble,
the clerk to take the roll call. Yes. Cecilia Coble, aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
David George,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
John Weingart,
Aye.
Brad DeReamer,
Aye.
Todd Zimmerman,
Aye.
Samantha DeLong,
Aye.
Jocelyn Vare.
Aye.
All members voted aye, and I'll sign the documents accordingly.
Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to item 10. That's a resolution R051820C. It's a request to approve a resolution authorizing temporary transfers, interfund loans to certain funds as a result of delayed property tax payments from COVID-19. And I'm going to turn it over again to Lisa Bradford, our city controller, for her presentation.
Thank you. As you're all aware, when Governor Holcomb issued his executive order, one of the items in that executive order was the ability to delay tax payments, property tax payments for all non-escrow payers for an amount up to 60 days with no penalty. And what happens with that is that the city usually receives an early distribution of property tax payments in May, and then our other piece of the distribution in July, and then again, the process repeats in November and December. With this 60-day potential delay for non-escrow filers, which is traditionally your corporations, your businesses, but there are a large number of homeowners in the city of Fishers who are also do not escrow. And what that does is places a potential burden on debt service payments that are statutorily required by the city. So what this resolution does is allows the city to shift potential cash balances from one debt service fund to a needed debt service fund, and also some of the TIF accounts. The amounts that are shown on the exhibit are not to exceed amounts, so the transfers would not be greater than those amounts, and those are essentially worst case scenario, assuming the city does not receive any amount of June property tax, which is obviously not very likely, but it is a just fail safe to make sure we are covered. I will say this is an advantageous position for the city to be in to actually do this. I've sat in on a lot of calls and received a lot of calls from banks and from other underwriters who want to talk about doing short-term financing, doing tax anticipation warrants, tax anticipation bonds to cover debt service payments. So the fact that we can actually do this on our own without having to pay interest costs to an outside party is a very good position for the city. Does the council have any questions?
Thank you, Lisa. I'll go ahead and start with David George. Councilor David George, do you have any questions?
I don't. Lisa covered it well.
Councilman Todd Zimmerman?
No questions. You covered it very well. Thank you.
Councilor Brad DeReamer?
No comments.
Okay. Councilor Sam DeLong?
No comments or questions.
Councilor John Weingart?
Just one comment. First of all, Lisa, great job tonight. Second of all, certainly it bodes well the financial position of this city. You know, we're not out borrowing short-term dollars to pay these liabilities. We're doing it out of cash funds. We should all be very proud of the fiscal position this city's in. So great job, Lisa, and thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor Weingart. Jocelyn Barr?
No comments, no questions.
Okay. Councilor Pete Peterson?
Nothing further.
Okay. Councilor Selena Stoller?
Nothing further.
And I have no questions or comments. So with that, I ask, is there a motion to approve R051820C?
I'll make a motion to approve this time.
Second by Pete.
Motion by Todd Zimmerman, second by Pete Peterson. I'll now call for a vote on R051820C and ask the clerk to take a roll call vote.
Cecilia Coble,
Aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
David George,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
John Weingart,
Aye.
Brad DeRemer,
Aye.
Todd Zimmerman,
Aye.
Samantha DeLong,
Aye.
Jocelyn Vare.
Aye.
All members voted aye, and I'll sign the documents accordingly.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now we're moving on to items related to planning and zoning. We're going to move on to item 11. It's request to approve a rezone from R2 residential to PUDR for a new single-family residential development to be called Iron Point. It's a final reading. This ordinance originated with the council, and it received a favorable recommendation from the city's Plan Commission, who held a public hearing on the matter, and I'm going to turn it over to the City Planning and Zoning Director, Tony Bagato.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brad DeRemer. With advice of City Attorney Brad DeRemer will recuse himself on this matter. Let the record show. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor DeRemer.
And good evening, and I'll just point out that Megan Schaefer will be giving the presentation, but I will also be available for questions.
Good evening all. This is Megan Schaefer with the Planning and Zoning Department. So the item before you is for the Iron Point rezone. So Feger Drinker, on behalf of Pulte, is requesting a rezone of approximately 20 acres of land that's zoned R2 residential currently, and the proposed development would be PUD residential. The new district would be known as the Iron Point PUD and is generally located on the south side of 106th
Megan,
there?
are you still there? I can't hear you. I don't know. I think we lost.
I can't
you
hear.
there.
Yeah, I'm not hearing her, but I can pick up. The project is located on the south side of 106th Street, and just making sure, can you guys hear me? This is Tony Bagato.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This subdivision was already reviewed for first reading. At that first reading, if you recall, we had residents come out from the adjacent neighborhood, Windermere, on Fairwood Drive, expressing concerns about the stub street that was designed as a cul-de-sac with some flag lots, but was always designated as a stub street in our mapping process. And there was concerns about that becoming a through street and disrupting the neighborhood. So we had mentioned then that there would be discussions about making that a secondary access. And there was a neighborhood meeting with those residents by Pulte and Steve Harden with them before the Plan Commission meeting. As mentioned previously by Councilmember President, that we did have the public hearing. There was quite a bit of discussion around different aspects of the project, mostly focusing again on that access for the development. And the Plan Commission had agreed with the compromise that we would require it to be a secondary access only, but they did believe that the access should be provided for at least emergency purposes. One of staff's reasoning was that Windermere itself only has 4 access points today, and if it was developed under today's code, it would require 12. And so this is just as much a benefit to Windermere as it is to the Iron Point development. With that, there was other comments by the Plan Commission related to lot sizes that we discussed. And given that this is an age-friendly neighborhood, they felt that this was adequate response, and the developer has provided architectural standards for the rear of properties that face the common area pond as well as 106th Street. And so all in all, staff has been satisfied with the comments and concerns from the public and has been addressed with the petitioner to the best extent possible. And staff is recommending approval. Plan Commission did recommend approval, and we're here for any questions as well as the petitioner.
Thank you, Tony Bagato. And I'm sorry, for those of you following us, this is item 12, not 11. Item 12 is ordinance 021720 concerning the Iron Point development. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 021720?
This is Pete, so
This
moved.
is John. I'll second it. This is John.
Okay, so there's a motion by Pete Peterson and second by John Weingard. For discussion purposes, I'm now going to ask each council member to make any comments or ask questions. We'll start with Councilor David George.
Nothing further. Tony covered the question I had about the work. Thank you.
Okay. Todd Zimmerman?
Nothing further, just excellent work on everybody's part of listening to residents' concerns and making alterations.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Brad DeReamer?
Recused.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Sam DeLong?
No comments or questions.
Councilor John Weingard?
Just want to say I was at some of the meetings that Pulte had with Windermere residents. I do live in Windermere. This is, half of Windermere is in Pete's district, the other half's in my district, and residents here are satisfied and are excited about this new development. So, great job by our team to put all this together. Thank you.
Thank you, John Weingart. Councilor Jocelyn Dare?
Yeah, just a thank you. There were a lot of resident concerns that came up and had an opportunity to be heard and addressed. And happy to hear about the compromise that happened with the Fairwoods Drive cul-de-sac. I think I just have one small question, or big, perhaps. When this proposal first came forward, I think it was in February. And I appreciate the world's changed somewhat since then. At that point, one concern was raised about the price point of the homes being on the high side for a smaller ranch. And just my question was, due to the new economy and environment, if anything in that regard has changed in the plans moving forward.
Council President Coble, this is Steve Harden. Would you like me to address that now or wait till the rest of the council members have made comments?
Go ahead, Steve. Sorry. Go ahead and answer now.
Sure. Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the City Council. Nice to be in front of you virtually today. With me from Pulte Homes is our Fishers residents, Dave Compton and Rex Ramage. And so if I don't answer the question correctly, I'm sure Dave will, as he is always willing to do, will supplement it. But I believe the answer to Councilwoman Bear's question is no, there is nothing that's changed. The outlook is still strong. This project will be coming online into the future, not today or next month. And so my understanding is there aren't any changes with respect to the planned development or the price points that appear to be appropriate for the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Harden. Thank you. Councilor Peterson?
Nothing further other than just to thank staff and certainly Pulte Homes for working with the current residents to satisfy all their issues and problems. Again, I've always found our staff and Pulte work very well together when we're trying to come into a common goal and try to meet the needs of the residents. And this is just proof again that the process does work. So other than that, no comments.
Okay, thank you. Selena Stoller?
No comments this time.
Okay, thank you. And I do not have any comments or questions at this time either. So now I will call for a vote on ordinance 021720 and ask the clerk to take a roll call vote.
Cecilia Coble?
Aye.
Selena Stoller?
Aye.
David George?
Aye.
Pete Peterson?
Yes.
John Weingart?
Aye.
Brad DeReamer?
Recuse.
Todd Zimmerman?
Aye.
Samantha DeLong?
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear?
Aye.
I will sign the documents accordingly. 8 voted yay. Brad DeReamer abstained.
Thank you very much.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 13. It's ordinance 021720C. This is the final reading of a text amendment to the city's Unified Development Ordinance establishing a payment in lieu of open space fee. This ordinance originated with the council and it received a favorable recommendation from the city's plan commission, who held a public hearing on the matter, and I'm going to turn it over to the city's planning and zoning director, Tony Bagato.
Good evening once again. Thank you, Tony Bagato, for the record. This item actually dates back to our general plan process and amendment back in 2016 when I first came on board. As part of the comprehensive plan, it talked about pursuing an option to have a payment in lieu of open space fee, which is an ordinance that Noblesville's actually had on their development process for many years, and so it was one of the options pursued in our code. And the general plan was approved in 2016. The open space standards got revised in 2017 and had discussions that with developers, both commercial and residential, who were open to having a payment in lieu fee option instead of having to provide open space as part of the development. And so in 2017, we amended open space standards and put the option to pay a fee. However, we didn't have the fee ordinance itself finalized, and through some delays in working with our consultant to get this done with Policy Analytics over the last year, we finally moved forward with the actual fee to establish the payment option that was already in the ordinance in 2017. So again, what you see before you is just the finalization, the last stage of several years worth of work to create just another option for developers. It's not an impact fee, so they don't have to pay it. It's just an option. If they don't want to provide open space as part of the development, they can pay it in lieu. And so we have two options in front of us as part of the ordinance. One is for residential and one is for commercial. For residential, we talked about before that it's related to how close they are within a regional park, which is defined by 20 acres or more. So if they're within a quarter mile of that park, they would receive a 75% reduction with a fee. If they're a half mile from the park, they would have a 50% reduction. And then if they're greater than a half mile, they could receive up to a 20% reduction by paying that fee. And that gives them more buildable land in exchange for that fee. The exhibit I'm showing now as part of the ordinance highlights which parks would qualify for that and was also in the council packet and in the ordinance. And then there's a breakdown of those costs provided. And same thing with commercial. Now, since commercial is a little bit trickier, they don't get more land to develop in the sense of number of housing units. With commercial, we tried to expand this, that their open space standards apply for any outdoor seating, that they can do public art in lieu of open space and reduce those percentages, or they can pay the city the art fee, well, we're calling it the payment in lieu fee, and we would put it towards public art in another location that our Art Cultural Commission would deem appropriate. And so this is open up to an 80% reduction, a 60% reduction, and a 40% reduction. And the way we set it up, given the council's comments about smaller properties having issues maybe paying that and being held to the same standard, we have two different fees set up for. If you're more than 2 acres, they would pay 50% of the assessed value of the land that they're gaining for the reduction. And then if they're 2 acres or less, they would only have to pay 20%. So it's a much smaller fee. For example, if they were building on a 6,000 square foot requirement of open space, they would receive a 40% reduction and only pay a $5,000 fee. So again, back in 2017, the developers were very open to this and thought it was a good option if they didn't want to provide the open space themselves directly. And the Plan Commission held a public hearing, and it was received favorably overall. Councilmember Zimmerman has expressed concerns and did vote against it, but overall the rest of the Plan Commission supported it. And staff's available for any questions or comments. Then
Thank you,
that's
Tony.
the final reading.
Thank you. So for discussion purposes, I'm now going to ask each council member whether they have any additional comments or questions. We'll start with Councilman David George.
I don't, but Todd, I'm sure you will. If you could elaborate on your what you had at the last meeting. Thanks.
Councilman Todd Zimmerman.
Yeah, my concern was, and Tony's done a good work with this. So my concern was the impact on entrepreneurs with regard to basically forcing their hand in some of the language to make a payment in addition for the art or open space. So that's my concern. Once again, it's just on the verbiage. I just feel like, as an entrepreneurial city, we want to support our entrepreneurs as much as possible, and those small businesses could be impacted by this, from my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brad DeReamer?
No comments or questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Sam DeLong?
No comments or questions.
Thank you. Councilor John Weingart?
No comments or questions.
Thank you. Councilor Jocelyn Dare?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pete Peterson?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Councilor Selena Stoller?
Nothing further, thank you.
And I don't have any comments or questions, so I'm going to ask if there is a motion to approve ordinance 021720C.
This is Pete, motion to approve.
Motion by Pete Peterson. Do I have a second?
Second by Selena.
Second by Selena Stoller. Okay. I'm now going to call for a vote on ordinance 021720C and ask the clerk to take a roll call vote.
Cecilia Coble,
Aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
David George,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
John Weingart,
Aye.
Brad DeReamer,
Aye.
Todd Zimmerman,
Nay.
Samantha DeLong,
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear.
Aye.
There was 8 yeas, 1 nay. I will sign the documents accordingly.
Okay, motion passes. We're going to move on to item number 14. It's ordinance 051820B. This is the first reading of the Grantham PUD. It's a request to rezone 2 properties that consist of 154 acres, and it's located at the corner of 113th Street and Southeastern Parkway. I'm going to turn it over to the city's Planning and Zoning Director, Tony Bagato.
Thank you. And this evening, Jesse Bushell will give the presentation, and I will be available as well. Thank you.
For the record, excuse me. For the record, Jesse Bushell with Planning and Zoning. The item you have before you is the first reading of ordinance number 051820B. This is the Grantham PUD. I did send out around 4 o'clock a packet from the petitioner that was uploaded on time, but was failed to be uploaded as part of the council report. So I do apologize for the delay. So it is not on the council or on the petitioner.
Jesse, are you still there? We can't hear you for some reason.
Yes, ma'am, I am. I'm sorry. My computer muted me. So the petitioner on this is Fager Drinker on behalf of the Platinum Properties. They are seeking to rezone the parcels from the current zoning of R2 and ER to PUDR. The total acreage of the project will be 157.6 acres.
I can't hear him.
Jesse, I'm sorry. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
So the proposed plan unit development will consist of 314 lots on 157.6 acres and will have a mixture of lot sizes and product types. In total, there will be 3 districts, each of which will have different lot sizes. The lot sizes will range from 50 feet to 90 feet, and the lot ranges will be 6,000 square feet to 11,700 square feet. And the developer plans to use 3 different home builders, custom home builders, and will be maintaining most of the natural area that exists already at that area. The development will include a 10-foot wide perimeter path along Southeastern Parkway and 113th Street to add to the City of Fishers trail system. And the development will also be incorporating an 8-foot path throughout the subdivision that will wind through the mature woods, adding a nice amenity for the development, activating a substantial amount of open space.
Jesse, are you finished with your presentation? I wasn't sure. You're cutting off a little bit there.
I'm not. I'm almost done. The developer will
Okay,
also.
sorry. You're cutting
No, you're
off,
fine.
and I'm not sure we're able to hear everything.
I can just go from this slide on. Every time I switch slides, that's what's making happen. So the developer will be incorporating the existing wall and entryway with the guardhouse that currently exists on 113th Street. As you see in the pictures, if you are on Teams, it's a nicely built gate that is built for the Becker Estate, which that is the property that this will be going on, redeveloping. And it is along 113th Street, which has a very nice canopy of trees that the developer will be maintaining on their side of the road. So it will be a nice added amenity to the overall, just making it look nice. Just to give you some numbers on the house products, District A is going to be R3 standards. Lot size is going to be 11,700 square feet with single story at 1,800 square feet and 2-story at 24 minimum. The District B will be 9,000 square foot lots with 1,800 square feet for single story, 2,200 for 2-story. And homes in District A and B will range from 425,000 to 550,000 plus. District C is geared towards empty nesters. Lot sizes will be 6,000 square feet. Single stories will be 1,600 square feet, and 2-story will be 2,000 square feet. And this District C will be incorporating not only just single-family homes, but will also have paired patio homes as a nice product option to be offering to that area. And the homes will be starting in the mid-300s for that. As part of the rezone process, the petitioner will also be annexing the subject land into the City of Fishers. The Department of Planning and Zoning is supportive of the project and believes it will be complementary to the surrounding area. If approved through the process, site design and development will start in late 2020, and home construction will begin in 2021. And staff is here for any questions in this, and and Steve Harden with Fager Drinker is also on the line. So.
Thank you, Jesse. So now I'm going to open it up for council questions and comments. We'll go ahead and start with Councilor David George.
Nothing at this step, thanks.
Okay, Councilor Todd Zimmerman.
Nothing at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Brad DeReamer.
Yeah, I have quite a few items. One, we always ask the developer to meet with the surrounding landowners to be fair to them and educate them. That has not happened. I know we got a COVID situation, but the surrounding landowners are concerned. They haven't had an opportunity to meet with the developer, voice their concerns. And this, because of the situation we're in, we might want to delay this one to be fair to the surrounding landowners. Number two, the original thoroughfare plan showed that Cynthia Ann Road was supposed to continue from the intersection at Southeastern and Cynthia Ann, continuing south all the way to 113th. From what I heard, the landowner was not happy with that and didn't want it coming through the big urban lots. And the Cynthia Ann Road got changed on the thoroughfare plan, which, as an engineer surveyor, I had a big problem with. You always want your county/city to have north-south and east-west roads. The only north-south road is Oleo Road to Atlantic is 3 miles without having a north-south road. Cynthia Ann is a main feeder into Noblesville. All the people that live in that northeast quadrant take Cynthia Ann Road up to 234 and then into Noblesville. It is a heavily traveled road. And in my opinion, Cynthia Ann should have continued like it was on the thoroughfare plan to 113th. Now, the owner doesn't want the urban, he wants small lots. I don't understand the logic. So it is zone urban, and as the mayor and the council knows, we've been hustling companies all over the world, and one of the problems, the big CEOs that come in here say, you don't have any urban lots for me to build my multi-million-dollar home on. I am not bringing my business to Fishers. Now we're taking urban lots out. We're ruining our economic development chances of bringing in some big CEOs from around the world. Doesn't make sense. The other concerns I have are the entrances on Southeastern Parkway. Is the developer going to widen Southeastern to 3 lanes? He's got one entrance on a curve, which I think our engineers may have a problem with. And with Southeastern doing 50, 60 miles an hour, we're going to need a left-hand turn. So that is going to have to be widened the entire length to at least 3 lanes to accommodate all the traffic on that. So at this time, with everything that I've researched and the adjoining landowners talking to me and Chris today, I think we need to continue the first reading for 30 days. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Councilor DeReamer. Do we have any comments or questions from Councilor Sam DeLong?
No comments or questions currently.
Okay, thank you. Councilor John Weingart?
I don't know if this fits out here or not, and that's the thing. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the state-sized lots that are on, to the west. Little concerned about traffic. I'm actually majorly concerned about traffic, having those many homes and with the roads as it sits right now. But does it need first reading? Should it go to Planning Commission? I'd like to see it vetted through there and see what happens. But it just, I'm not all that fired up about this, quite honestly. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor Weingart. Now we'll move on to Councilor Jocelyn Dare.
I don't have any questions at this time. I'm still kind of sorting through it, but I appreciate very much the questions that have been asked so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Pete Peterson?
Yeah, I would echo, a matter of fact, I'll second Brad DeReamer's motion to continue. I have some issues, maybe not with the entire project, but certainly with a good majority of the project. It wouldn't, in my mind, give it a first reading at this point. So I would be amenable to go ahead and continue to we're able to get the petitioner to meet with all the residents out there to discover really their needs and wants and issues before bringing it back to council for a first reading. Additionally, just because council really hasn't received this packet with a great deal of time to really review it, I think it's also kind of unfair. I think it was really David who really wanted to bring these back to council for first reading. Both Brad and I and Todd get to go see it at Planning Commission, but I want to make sure that the council has adequate time to digest this, and the best way to do that in my mind is Brad's way of going ahead and continuing it for another 30 days. So with that, I'm going to second and stop my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Peterson. Councilor Selena Stoller?
No comment at this time.
Okay. And I would say, this is Cecilia Coble, I would say I echo some of the same sentiments of Councilor Pete Peterson, John Weingart, and Brad DeReamer. So I think it needs more time for discussion and consideration. So, Chris, procedurally, what do we do now?
Councilwoman Coble, this is Steve Harden. I'm happy just to address the comments here. I don't think I think we're in alignment, so if it's okay, I can maybe help.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Steve Harden. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, and I apologize. Appreciate Jesse's comments about the packet. We did submit our packet back in March when this originally had first reading before the pandemic. So unfortunately, you didn't get it until we understand today. But yeah, it's no one's fault really. But it was submitted a couple months ago. We did send out our letter back in March inviting everyone to a neighbors meeting, but then the pandemic happened, so the Plan Commission was pushed off. The most recent letter that we sent out was last Monday, and we shared with everybody, given the restrictions, that, you know, we'd be happy to talk with anybody that wants to call and talk to the developer. And I know that Paul Rio has done that with Mr. Sloot, who lives just kind of in that one of the cutout there at the north eastern portion of the site. That's the only person there that I believe has reached out, and then also one of the other neighbors right up there by the pond at the north along southeastern. So so Paul has talked to Mr. Sloot. I don't think there's any issue. No one's trying to do this too quickly, and no need to put any extra stress on anybody. So my only comment was, there's been a lot of work with the planning department and in the city engineering department. There's a lot of neat opportunities to really make this a special, really, really nice development. And so we want everyone to be able to digest it, to fully understand it and embrace it, because we do believe that the bulk of the property is zoned R2 right now. So it's not zoned, there's a little bit of it along that southeastern that's zoned the estate residential, just a little bit of it. And that person who owned the property was not originally planned to be included in the development. But when Mr. Rio met with them, they were able to strike a deal and we included it, but originally it wasn't even included. So this is mostly zoned R2 today for single-family development. And so we think that, you know, the time for people to digest it, get some better feedback when we come back for first reading in June, that's not a problem. We'll be happy to do that. And we'll continue working with everybody, and hopefully we'll figure out a way. We're doing Zoom meetings with neighbors, and we can do lots of different things between now and then as well, and hopefully give you a better update on how those discussions are going too. So with that, again, no need to put stress on anybody about having to make any decisions too quickly, and we'll have no problem coming back later in June for another first reading.
Thank you, Steve Harden. Are there any additional questions or comments from city councilors? Okay.
So President Coble, I think you have a motion on the table from Councilmember DeReamer to table first reading for 30 days. That's been seconded by Councilmember Pete Peterson.
Okay. So there is a motion by Brad DeReamer, Councilman Brad DeReamer, and a second by Pete Peterson. I'm going to go ahead and call for a roll call vote.
Cecilia Coble,
Aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
David George,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
John Weingart,
Aye.
Brad DeReamer,
Aye.
Todd Zimmerman,
Aye.
Samantha DeLong,
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear,
Aye.
all members voted.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Okay, we will continue this. We're going on to the regular items. Item 15 is any unfinished business, any unfinished or new business. Chris Greisen, do we have any unfinished or new business?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to item 16, community comments. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, any comments submitted by residents have been received and distributed among the council members. Those comments will be placed on the record for this meeting today, as if the members were present during the comment period section here. However, the City Hall is open, and so I didn't know, Chris Greisel, do we have any members of the public at City Hall wishing to speak this evening?
We do, Council President Coble, have one member here ready to speak, and I'll allow that gentleman to make his way to the podium.
Okay. Sir, thank you for coming today. For the record, if you could please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Yes, my name's Roland Schlote, 16501 Southeastern Parkway. And thanks for spending some time on my concerns. I know this is not the formal time for it. I've lived here 40 years plus. I've been coming up here. My grandfather lived in Lux Haven since 1959. I've lived here and was in part of Fishers. The only thing that was a one-horse town. You might have known the Route of Bushes, IMI, and the Gun Club, and that was about it. So anyway, to make it short, I raised a family. I live there by myself now. So back in 2013, I did the opt-in program for state residential, to protect my property and have the rural lifestyle. And then my neighbor also did the same thing. That is 17 acres, and I have 5+. The 17 acres was introduced later after the first notice from the attorney for Platinum Development to add that on if they could get the ER zoning changed. And what they want to do is they want to put, originally there would have been 2 homes on the west side of my property. So I own a big part of that woods and that ravine, and then also on the south side's all wooded. And so now that number's gone from 2 to 24, and they want to stick on my south side perimeter. They want to put in those doubles. Now you could see why I'd be upset. I have the prime property. I'm sitting up on a hill, and I can overlook that whole valley. And so I have a lot of concerns, especially southeastern. The traffic is really bad. I can barely get out of my driveway, and it's a very dangerous curve. So now you have IMI with all the semi-concrete trucks, triaxles, you got the school buses, and you have all the new developments, Vermilion, Flat Fork, you have Welchel Springs. They're not even done yet, full capacity. You got the 2 new schools. You have developments on Cynthia Ann. So the traffic's awful. I can't even get to my mailbox. And I've seen a lot of kids on bicycles out there about to get run over. And a lot of people like that corridor because of the green space. And you can't get that back. You develop all that, that's what attracts people to Fishers. They're saying, you're lucky to live there. And everybody loves to come out in that area. If you take that away, you will be, destroying what part of Fishers is known for. They put the ag part in, and then, they're trying to keep that as a green space for everyone to enjoy. The density is way too high. And I can't see why it seems a little greedy if the first proposal was the Becker estate, and now you want to get another 17 acres, which is not going to break them of their development. And there's not hardly any ER left as it is now. So I think it's very important that, that really doesn't fit into that community there. Everybody there had to buy 5 acres before they could build. And so now they're wanting to, like I say, the density is just too much. And I could go into a lot of other issues, and I know that would be at a later time. But I did reach out to the...
Thank you, sir.
One last thing, I did
Sure.
reach... Can I go ahead?
Sure, go ahead.
So I did receive the letters, from the attorneys. And I did reach out to them, as they recommend, about my concerns about berms and perimeter landscaping and things. And my answer was pretty much, well, no matter what we do, you're still going to see them. And so that was after the first notification. And then when I got the new layout of the concept plans, they decided to even make it worse by putting the doubles all the way down the side of my property with a proposed road for that subdivision to come out on that curve. So you can gladly come out there anytime and do a study on that and see how bad it really is. I don't think it's a good idea at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very, very much for your comments today. We will take those into consideration and enter it into the public comment record. Chris, is there anybody else wishing to speak?
That's it, Council President Coble.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's adjustment in conducting these meetings telephonically during the pandemic to protect everyone's health and safety. We're expecting to hear further guidance from the governor this week regarding public meetings, and we'll abide by those plans and look to our legal counsel for advice on how to proceed forward here in June and into the months ahead. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion by Todd.
Motion by Todd Zimmerman. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I wish everybody safe and happy rest of the month of May and leading into the Memorial Day weekend. Thank you very much for your time today.